Okay, the clock that I can see the easiest says it's 6:30. So we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order if the roll would please be called.
Leibel? Bergson? Harper? Petrie?
Here.
Schrader? Shore? And Esri.
Here. And we have a quorum, so thanks. Okay, approval of the minutes for the ELEC committee meeting February 5th, 2015. Moved by Ms. Bergson, seconded by Mr. Schrader. Any comments or corrections to be made? Seeing none, all in favor of approving them, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, that passes. Thank you. Public participation. Doesn't look like we have any. Oh, sorry. I skipped over the approval of addenda. Is there such a moved by Mr. Harper? Seconded by Ms. Bergson. Is there any thing that needs to be added or subtracted from the agenda or addenda? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, that passes. Now on to public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? And if, okay, at this point in time, then we will move on to communications. Is there any communications from the members, board members, committee members? I have none. So then we'll move on to items for information only. The first one, 7A, request the Finance Committee to authorize county staff to apply for funding sources for road and drainage improvements in Wilbur Heights. And we have Susan here, Chavaria, to fill us in and give us some details and information.
Thank you.
It's
Well, as I'm sure most of you are aware, we have been working to try to find a resolution for the long-standing issues in Wilbur Heights subdivision since about late 2013. We have tried to meet with the public and businesses in that subdivision, and the county board also initiated a study with consultants Byrne Clancy and Associates to try to figure out what the major problems are and what some possible solutions are for them. The public identified drainage improvements due to stormwater, and also the need for improving Wilbur Avenue, which is the southern roadway in the subdivision, as the main issues. So we've been working with IDOT because it is an IDOT roadway at this point for the majority of it. And we've also been working with Byrne Clancy to try to look at both the drainage and the transportation infrastructure needs at the same time, because there are some economies of scale that can be found if we are able to do improvements together with those projects. The price tag that has come up as an estimate in current year costs is probably bigger than any of us would like to see, but we have a very serious problem in Wilbur Heights. It is a county concern. It is unincorporated, so we're hoping that everyone's willing to take a closer look at what we have now to date. So we have the Byrne Clancy estimated project phases as well as their estimated costs, and we also have funding information from IDOT about improving the roadway. As you can see in the memo that's been provided, and there's also some maps to go along with it, staff would like to recommend that over time we first invest in the reconstruction of Wilbur Avenue, because there is funding available from IDOT to do this, and no other funding will ever become available for this road reconstruction or even improvements except for IDOT transferring jurisdiction to Summer Township and the city of Champaign, and thus handing over a certain amount of money with that jurisdictional transfer. If no one accepts the jurisdictional transfer, the funding will go away, will not be available again. Wilbur Avenue will continue to be patched but never repaired because it's an unmarked state route, and IDOT does not do reconstruction of unmarked state routes. This is a very unique opportunity then for our area to get this funding in. A problem with that is that IDOT is providing less money than what is really necessary to do the optimal job on this roadway. They're paying for a resurfacing when it really needs a whole reconstruction. It is sitting on dirt. It's from the 1930s. It's never been replaced. So there's issues with needing to put a solid foundation under there, and that's also been backed up by Jeff Blue's team and also the engineers of the city of Champaign. So more expensive than what IDOT can provide, so there's a local match that needs to be found. We are suggesting to the county board and anyone else who might be able to provide funding or look for funding sources that we try to do a phase 1 drainage improvements for the subdivision by applying for a community development assistance program grant, ideally this year, so that we can cover what's missing in those road funds as well as do part of the drainage improvements, and they each serve as the match for the other. It's an ideal situation in terms of how the grant funding is available. We need about $215,000 if we were to do the project today, to do the road project, in addition to the IDOT funding. And the CDAP, local cost share, is 25%. So if we were to do their maximum of $450,000 in drainage improvements, we would need, about $150,000 more to make that happen. And so those two funding sources come together to make one project that's logical if we do it all at one time. So we're coming to the county board with this update on what the funding is and what the project suggestions are from Burns, Clancy, and IDOT. And at the time that a CDAP application is submitted for drainage improvements, we would like to go to the Finance Committee and the full county board to ask for permission to pursue that grant if it comes out to be logical. We also would like the county board to spearhead this as the logical board for moving Wilbur Heights forward. So that's why we're here today, just to give an update and kind of set the stage for moving forward really with Wilbur Heights finally.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Questions, comments from Ms. Petrie?
Was on. Thank you very much. I looked at the costs to do on the drainage from Burns and Clancy, and if memory served me correctly, in an earlier time when you were before us, when Burns and Clancy thought that there were plugged major drainage areas, that they thought that would reduce the cost of the project. If this is the cost of the project, I hesitate to think of what it might have cost us. That's number one. And number two, I'm not certain I understand, is a priori. Let me rephrase that. If this goes through finance and gets to the county board and they want to pursue grant funding, et cetera, then what are the plans for this going out for bid to do the project?
That would depend on when local funds could be found to do that phase 1 project.
Okay,
I can tell you that IDOT would be ready to fund their portion of Wilbur Avenue in as early as 2016, but they can keep it, as long as it's on their radar, they can push that out to other
Okay.
years. The CDAP funding is an annual cycle, so the next one will open up sometime late this spring, and it's a very competitive process. There's no guarantee that this project would be funded, and yet you still have $200,000 plus beyond the CDAP and beyond the IDOT funding that would need to be found locally, either through loans or some other funding source. So there's the need to consider taking out loans or looking at some sort of bonding locally.
Okay, I needed further clarification on the last statement, 200,000. I thought it was more like 400,000. Did I read something incorrectly?
No, you read it correctly. If we were to do just the first phase, which is part of the drainage improvements and the IDOT funding for the road,
I see, okay.
$200,000 for that phase,
Got it.
but the overall cost for local match would be over $400,000 in current year estimates.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Schrader?
Just a statement first, and that is, I appreciate the News Gazette writing a very well-documented article about the problem out there at Wilbur Heights. And I think it's great that the public is aware of an issue that's occurring at such dire need, especially in that particular area. I guess I was wondering about, how should I put this? When it comes to IDOT and Wilbur Avenue, you said they just want to resurface that, and basically that's a Band-Aid on a major wound. In the past, and I've been familiar with a few of those. In particular, I think the latest that was turned over to the county were the two different slabs, the one between Philo and Sydney, and the one between Philo and Route 45, where those were basically resurfaces. And then there's a pretty good amount of money for upkeep on those roads for, I think, at least a decade. I'm not sure, maybe 7 years. Is there any kind of funding for, I know the state's broke, seriously broke, but I was wondering if there's any kind of that kind of money where we would get the resurfacing money and then maintenance money on top of that.
IDOT says that the amount of money that they are maxed out and able to provide includes 20 years of maintenance. So I'm not sure exactly what that amount is in terms of the proportion of the $634,000 and change that they're offering, but they said they can go no higher and that it already includes the maintenance.
Mr. Harper?
On their Burns and Clancy, on their surveys, are they sure they got a drainage outlet with all the railroad I mean, if you don't have drainage under that road will fall apart, even if you put a new basin, if you don't get the water away from it. So they're positive they can get rid of the water, my question.
If these drainage improvements are done like they say they should be, it will take care of it and make that foundation solid under the road. If the road's done by itself, you're going to have problems.
Anyone else before Ms. Petrie? Again, I mean, first round. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Petrie.
Some of the issue out there that's aggravated the flooding at this present time is the residents out there filling in the ditches. And do you have some suggested plans, should all of this get done, that the county put something in place so that isn't repeated? Because we can do a lot of work, but if the ditches get filled in again, then we're back to the issue that Mr. Harper is raising.
I would recommend looking into doing having the residents and businesses pay for at least a portion of the improvements that go on in front of the roads, in the ditches right in front of their houses. I would suggest looking into a taxing district, similar to what was done for Scottswood, where the residents paid for a certain amount for a certain number of years to help with the project. And I think you're going to need an educational aspect of helping everyone understand this is a systemic improvement that cannot be, bothered with at individual level. They have to think about the whole neighborhood.
Okay, and then the second thing that I wanted to share with you, that both Diane Michaels and Jack Anderson are more than willing to work with all of you in relationship to this project.
Thank you.
Mr. Weibel?
Susan, I understand this is a mixture of residential and businesses. Is that correct?
Yes.
What's the proportion by area or number of plots or?
When I was doing the survey of the area, which was in late 2013, we had about 20 businesses and about 60 residences. In terms of acreage, I believe it's about 34 acres total, and the majority of it is residential.
Okay, more than 50%. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schrader?
Susan, getting back to someone who wanted to take responsibility for this, and that in particular Summer Township or City of Champaign. I assume if City of Champaign would be interested, they'd probably want to annex that thing if they want to. But has there been any kind of discussion with Summer Township if they've shown any interest in helping with the project? City of Champaign, either one of them?
Right. Are you talking specifically about Wilbur Avenue? Are you talking about drainage and everything?
I'm talking about everything.
Okay. The city of Champaign does not have this in their future plans to annex. They don't want it. And as for the road part, which is right now is IDOT, a small portion, it's 0.14 miles is within the city of Champaign. The 0.3 miles is in Summer Township. And both of them have expressed interest in accepting the jurisdictional transfer from IDOT in order to get this project done, but they don't have any money to put toward it at the same time. Another thing that is complicating matters is that a simple fix, relatively speaking, would be that the Urbana-Champaign Sanitary District could help with these drainage improvements. Right now, there's only a few houses that were grandfathered into the UCSD district. The majority of these are on septic, and they're part of a drainage district, the Beaver Lake Drainage District, that doesn't really provide a lot of assistance to the area. But UCSD will not annex an area into its jurisdiction to help with drainage unless it's already been annexed by a municipality. So highly unlikely that's going to happen.
Oh, Astrid?
I don't understand because we're not annexed into anything, but we are in the UC Sanitary District. Is that just, when did that rule go into effect?
I want to say it was 1997, but I'm not exactly sure. It's there's an actual policy they have on their a resolution on their website they have about it. Mm-hmm.
Any other comments, questions? And if not, I mean, being for information only, you aren't looking for any action tonight, obviously. You're
Correct.
just making us aware.
Yes,
So
we're
what's
going to go to
happening?
the highway committee tomorrow with the same information, so.
Okay, sounds good. Seeing no other questions, I guess we'll move on then to 7B, update regarding land resource management conditions relevant to Champaign County. And we'll go to the other, Susan Monty.
Hello. I reviewed actual events during 2014 for those that were most relevant to county resource and land management topics, and under that purview, I came up with these 3 topics and events during 2014. The Long-Range Transportation Plan for 2040 was updated and adopted, and that serves as a guidance and a strategy for consideration by those who are looking at spending monies and funds toward transportation improvements. And it's simply required kind of effort, and you all had presentations about it during 2014. So that was a significant occurrence. The Muhammad Aquifer protection is ongoing, and during 2014, there were some stays to the permits that were issued for the Clinton landfill, hazardous waste dumping. So the governor and the IEPA rescinded both of the permits for PCBs and for manufactured gas plant waste at that landfill. And then US EPA is not going to consider their permits on file for that, for those dumping of those items. So just recently, as a means to try to achieve a permanent protection of the Mahomet Aquifer, there were two bills that were introduced, one by Senator Scott Bennett, and that did make it through the initial public hearing. The bill has some technical difficulties. The language needs some adjusting. For example, there's a reference to runoff, and that's really too broad a term. And leachate is more of the type of a term that would be looked for as a correction to that condition. So, and then there's other text kind of concerns that need to still be worked on. So that's one bill that made it through. Representative Ammons has an identical bill that is sitting in a static kind of way with no action yet at the House. So these two bills, House Bill 1326 and Senate Bill 1698, are pretty much the same content kind of bills, and both need support. So there's an effort to get that support so that this more permanent form of protection can be achieved. It's still very much in play, this effort. There are still strategies being worked on by both sides to their own purpose, to try to get what they want. So this really does require some more action by the public, by all of us. And so I thought that was important to bring up again. Additionally, the US EPA is still considering the sole source aquifer request, and a Senate resolution has been introduced to try to keep that in the forefront. So that effort is still going on. So very much needed. Protection is still not definite. All right, so then a third item that I noted in my report was the U.S. 2012 Census of Ag updates. And I recall last spring, Patsy was very interested in seeing these results, so I thought this would be of interest. And it is of interest to the degree that it updates the tables in our land resource management plan. It does have some useful information. And for instance, there are fewer farms and they're larger in acreage. That's a trend that continues. Patsy pointed out earlier that there's an unaccountable type of increase in total acreage of farmland, and there could be many reasons for that. If you look at your tables that were distributed tonight, the 2012 total is 616,493 acres, up 66,000 acres from the 2007 amount, and there could be many reasons for that. Reporting, it's a self-reported survey, as Patsy indicated, so it is what it is. So, yeah, the number of irrigated farms is increasing. That's not a surprise after the drought of 2012. In Table 4, 12.4, you can see the impacts of the 2012 drought in the decreased production values. So that's one obvious impact that's obvious from the census data. Nothing remarkable that I can detect from the livestock inventory tables. Number of farms by tenure, that's changing so that there are more part owners, and that's an ongoing trend. So yeah, these updated tables are provided and proposed as a minor amendment to the Land Resource Management Plan. It does represent the data that has been published by the U.S. 2012 Census of Agriculture. There are some values that are missing, and you may already know that whenever there's a missing value in these kind of tables, it's to protect confidentiality of those reporting, so that if there's one or two farms, that data is not so obvious as to where it's coming from. I wanted to bring up that there is a new effort to collect data about organic farming, and a survey is going out, or has gone out, either in 2014 or is about to go out, to collect data about organic farming. And you should see that if you're a farmer. And additional data about direct-to-consumer sales of agricultural products for human consumption. That's data that I couldn't locate specific to Champaign County, but it's out there. So more and more local foods kind of data collection is being looked at and started. Are there any questions?
Ms. Petrie?
Susan is actually absolutely correct. We were looking forward to the census coming out because of that economic model that we're working on. And when it came out, needless to say, we really sort of, I would say, tore the figures apart, and some of the others working on the economic model really know our farmland well. I certainly am not in that. I don't have that knowledge. So I respect a lot of the issues that they brought up and concerns. I realize it is a census, and this is what we have to work on. So what I'm wondering is, when this is updated in the LRMP, is there a way a footnote can be put in that points out that this is self-reported data, so that those who are not so familiar with this census can appreciate that factor, and maybe make a note of the discrepancy or the unusual increase of land and agriculture in this report as compared to 5 years earlier, so that people who look at it will say this has been say to themselves that this has been noted, because all of this then rolls over to all the rest of the figures that were reported.
Yes, and after your comments tonight, I wanted to question the county assessor to find out if the different farmland assessment techniques have come into play for how people report their farmland.
I don't have an answer to that from those conversations around the economic model. I will share with you some of the hypotheses that were tossed out, and that is since it's self-reporting, and if you read the census questions, you could imagine how people could report land that's in Indiana that they farm, or something up in Minnesota, or some of those type of things. So that is some of the wondering that these folks had, because the wording of the questions on the census are not very definitively written, shall we put it that way, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the request is that this be held for 30 days. I'd be happy to add a footnote and additional explanation as you request.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions at this point in time? Did you have anything else for us, Susan, or is that? If that's all, then we will move on to item 8. Items to receive and place on file by ELUC committee to allow for a 30-day review period. And we have proposed amendments to Champaign County Land Resource Management Plan.
Right, and this includes to the annual update of the corporate limit boundaries and 1 1/2 mile extraterritorial jurisdiction. And that's reflected on the map for 2014, as well as the updates to the US 2012 census tables.
Any discussion on this? Oh, and we need a motion, I guess, first. Sorry.
Move to accept, place this on file for 30 days.
Moved by Mr. Weibel, seconded by Ms. Bergson. Now, I guess, any discussion? Any more discussion? And if not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, move on to item 9, items to be recommended by the county, to the county board. A, case 721-AM-12, recommendation to approve a zoning map amendment to change the zoning district designation from the AG Ag 2 Agricultural Zoning District to the B1 Rural Trade Center Zoning District in order for the Zoning Board of Appeals to approve a special use permit authorizing the construction and use of two 24,000-gallon bulk fuel storage tanks in addition to the existing grain storage facility in related case 794-S-14, Premier Cooperative Incorporated. Moved by Mr. Schrader and seconded by Mr. Harper, I believe, or was it Weibel? Mr. Harper,
He was
got it.
faster than me.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay, and it's actually, I guess, 797 AM 15, okay. That's the actual case number. Okay, AM 15. Yeah, discussion, yeah. Oh,
Since I moved the motion, I'll
okay, accept that change.
accept the change. Absolutely.
That's fine by the second, Mr. Harper. Okay. Any discussion on this then? Mr. Weibel?
John, you state that the neighbor at 1807 Leverett attended the meeting but had no objection. Where is 1807 Leverett?
It's actually east, across the railroad track.
Is it just across? I mean, it's on the map here, okay. Okay, to the, further to the west, it looks like there's I think it's a trailer park.
Yes.
Does anybody, did they receive notice of this? Or the owners, or actually how that takes place, just the owner of the park, or the occupants receive notice? or-
We only send notice to properties within 250 feet of the
Okay,
subject
so they're
property.
beyond the, okay,
So they didn't receive
okay, all
notice.
right, thank you.
I would note that in past years, this committee received lots of complaints about the temporary grain storage that used to occur on this property. That was from one person, one neighbor, who no longer lives in the area. But,
What was the nature of the complaint?
well, the temporary grain storage facilities, when they're storing grain in the winter, sometimes they have to run their fans a lot just to keep
Also the
the,
noise.
it was noise. And then they had one year when they had a lot of spoilage, so there was odor.
Okay.
I mean, in that regard, the fuel storage won't have those characteristics.
Mr. Schrader, I believe.
Just real quick, just to notate too, just to note that basically catty corner from this proposed property is a facility that has bulk fuel and liquid storage propane. And those cases were done in 91 and 95 as special uses. So there is a site out there that already exists. It's probably around 500 feet away or less. So
Any other discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Petrie.
Two information questions that I didn't see. What is the soil type out there that's being covered in, covering this soil? Does it create any drainage issues?
Actually, there probably won't be any net increase in impervious area. And I'm reasonably certain these are best prime farmland soils, but they've been out of production since the since the grain storage facility was approved. So this amendment actually doesn't take any more out of production.
So it won't show up on your matrix.
It will not show up on the matrix.
I guess as for, you mentioned like runoff and such, or impervious, all the bulk fuels I've been around, it talks about the dikes around them. That collects all the rainwater. Now, if there's nothing in it, then they pump it out to just drain it. But if there would be, some type of a spill, I mean, they have to physically pump it out. It collects any rainwater that falls in around the tank, because the dike's made to contain the volume of the tanks, plus, I'm sure. So, I mean, yeah, but of course, if it is just rainwater, then they will pump it out.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, if not, Mr. Schrader.
If anybody has any questions, technical questions or anything, there's two representatives here tonight from Premier Cooperative. If anybody on the board has any questions or anything about
Good point.
what's going on out there, go ahead and ask them.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, that passed unanimously. Thank you. Move on to B then, case 791-AT-14, amends standard conditions and special provisions for heliport, restricted landing area, and restricted landing area in section 6.1.3 of the Champaign County zoning ordinance to correct and make permanent the amendment adopted in case 768-AT-13 regarding heliport restricted landing area and restricted landing area. Is there such a motion? Moved by Ms. Bergson, seconded by Mr. Weibel. Discussion. Ms. Petrie.
It's just an information question to remind me, all of this is passed mustered with the state, is that correct?
Yes, in fact,
Okay.
it's adopting their rules.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? This makes it permanent,
That's
is
right.
the idea. And we haven't had any complaints or issues with it, so looks like we're ready to vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? That passes unanimously too. Okay, on to item 10. We have the monthly reports for January 2015, which we will accept and place on file. Is there any discussion on them, though, or questions about them for John? And seeing none, we will move on to 11, other business, and we have A, the approval of closed session minutes, which I believe got passed around, I believe everybody saw them, of January 8th, 2015. There a moval for the approval of the? Moved by Mr. Harper. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Bergson. We don't really discuss, well, let's see. Yeah, we could have yeah. Is there any desire to have a closed session, I guess, to discuss the minutes? Seeing none of that, all in favor of the approval, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. None there. Okay, so that passes. Then we have on the addendum, we have B, the semi-annual review of closed session minutes. And that would be, I guess, the recommendation. Is there, Deb?
The state's attorney's recommendation was to maintain them as closed.
Okay, is
We
there,
just need a motion to that effect.
is there? I don't really care, Ms. Bergson and Mr. Schrader in whichever order. I don't believe they probably really care either. I assume we can probably just go ahead and vote on that. Is all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, that passes as well. Thank you. Chair's report. I don't have anything that I can think of at this point in time. Designation of items to be placed on consent agenda. That would be both under line 9 to be A and B, the two cases that we just went through. I guess move to adjournment. Moved by Mr. Shore, seconded by Ms. Bergson. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.